everybody and welcome back to the course. In this video you'll have a quick assignment to complete. So the first exercise is to make a what number is bigger script. So basically you'll need to create two public integer or float variables, and then you'll need to create a conditional statement so that you print out what number is the biggest. If the two numbers are the same, we would want to print that out also. Then the second exercise is to make a grade assigner script. So in here, you'll need to create a public integer variable for the score, and then with a conditional statement, it will print out the correct grade for that score. So let's say that between 90 and 100, it will print out a A, between 80 and 90, it will give a B, between 70 and 80, it will give you a C, between 65 and 70, it will give you a D, and anything from 0 to 65 will give you a F. It would be great if you could also search how to constrain the values for the score variable to range only from 0 to 100. Alright, so now pause the video and complete the two exercises, and once you're done, you can press play and we will proceed with the correction. Good luck. Alright, let's start off with the first problem. I'm going to make two public float variables called number1 and number2, but you could of course make these integers. Then inside the start function, I'm going to create a if statement that will check if number1 is greater than number2, and if it is, then I'll just print out number1 is bigger than number2. Then we'll create another condition, so I'll make a else if statement, and I'll check if this time number2 is bigger than number1. If this is true, then we'll print out number2 is bigger than number1. Lastly, I'll create another else if statement that will check if number1 is equal to number2. Remember that we use the double equal sign. And if it is, then we will simply print out that both numbers are equal. If you wanted, you can actually transform the last else if statement into an else statement, because if number1 is not smaller nor bigger than number2, then it is obliged to be equal to it. So we don't need to specify any condition. Okay, let's now move on to the next problem. I'll start off by creating a public integer variable called score. Then inside the start function, I'll check if the score variable is greater than 90. If it is, then we'll print out the grade A. Now we'll make an else if statement and we will check if the grade is greater than 80, and this time we'll print out grade B. Next we'll check if the grade is greater than 70 and we'll print out C. Then else if grade is greater than 65, and we'll print this time to Unity console grade D. And lastly, we'll just make a else statement and we'll print out grade E. The else statement will basically get triggered if the score is between 0 and 65. Now you might be wondering, if the score is equal to 98 for example, wouldn't all the conditions be true and so all the prints would get triggered? The answer is no, because remember, the else if and else statements only run if the above statements did not get triggered. So if the score is equal to 98, well, the first if statement would get triggered, and so all the ones below it will not get triggered even though the conditions are true. Now let's check out how we can limit the score variable to be between 0 and 100. I'm going to give you two different ways you could do it. The first one is to create another if-else block before the one we created. We would basically check if the score is greater than 100, then we will simply set the score variable back to 100. So if the score variable is equal to 800 for example, then the if statement will get triggered, and so it will set the score variable to be back to 100. And then we'll create the else if statement, and this time we will check if the score is less than 0. And if it is, then we will set the score variable to be equal to 0. This is a perfectly correct way to solve this problem, but there is a much simpler and faster way to do it. We can just add right above the score variable a pair of square brackets and then write range, and inside the parentheses you can specify the range of values that you want. So in our case we want 0, 100. And that's it. So as you can see in Unity, this will actually transform your variable into a cool slider that will go from 0 to 100. Alright, that's it for this little assignment. I hope you're able to figure these problems out, and if you didn't, that's okay. Just go back through the videos on conditional statements and you might manage next time. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!